All right, now first I just need your name
Dennis Frederick Godfrey,
and your service number.
422853.
Okay. I assume you did your ITS at Bradfield Park?
Yes,
Yes. Classified for pilot training?
not originally.
No. How did that come about?
When I filed in the Air Force form, they asked me what I would like to be, and I've always been happy with numbers, so I wrote navigator. I thought, I'll never get to be a pilot. Then when the interview came with the selection panel, I walked in and they said to me, "Oh, you wanted to be a navigator?" And I said, "Yes." Well, they said, "You're in pretty severe competition here. There are quite a few ex-school teachers on your car, so we think we'll get enough navigators, but you did get a good score on that paraphernalia they had where your green ball had to chase a red one round the screen." They said, "You did rather good at that. We think you'd make a better pilot. Would you consider being a pilot?" I never thought anyone would ever say anything like that to me, so I agreed. They crossed out the N on my form and put a P and said, "Here, initial that. Thank you. We'll let you know what you're going to be." That's how it went, and so I became a pilot.
And were you sent here? You were sent here to 10 EFTS for training, for your Tiger Moth training?
Yeah, I did Tiger Moth training here. Then I went to, you'll have to excuse me.
Malala?
That's it, Malala.
On Anson's.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. How did you go here for your first solo? Do you remember that?
I can remember it, but I don't recall that I had any trouble. You know, when the time came, the instructor got out and said, "Right, on your own, just do one lap and come back here and pick me up," which I did. And from there on, I just continued to train for being a pilot.
So after you got your wings at Malala,
I did.
and then you were posted overseas.
That's right.
Yes.
Went straight to England.
Yes, and did the usual. You crewed up. Did your OTU in heavy conversion?
Yeah, well, it was just it was like being fed into a queue. You followed the queue of people and flew an Oxford. Then we went to Wellingtons, then the Stirling, and then on to Lancaster, and from there to 186 Squadron, where I did my operational work.
How did you feel when you first saw the Stirling?
Well, I must confess I looked at the height of it and I thought, this is going to present some problems, and my rear gunner, who was a most delightful man, the instructor was standing there. The rear gunner looked up and down at this thing. He looked from one end all the way down the back, and he was much taller than I, and he looked down at me and he said to the instructor, "Him?" And that was it. But I think he was just trying to take the mickey out of me, which he did.
But you didn't have any trouble with the Stirling?
No. It wasn't the best aeroplane I've ever flown, but no, I didn't prang one. I didn't leave one with its undercarriage wiped off, so I suppose that's you'd call a pass.
Yes. So from there, heavy conversion unit onto Lancs, and then to 186.
What?
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, that's right. 186 Squadron is where I started and finished.
Yes. How many trips did you do?
33.
Oh, so it was a full tour. What sort of trips were they? What sort of targets?
Well, you name it, I did it. I've bombed anywhere from Dresden, which was, way over in the depth of Germany, to the Ruhr Valley. You never knew. But it was a variety of things, towns, munition dumps, you were never really quite sure what was underneath you when you were dropping them.
Yes, did you bomb normally on target indicators that the pathfinders had put down?
Well, the bomber was the man who took care of the last part.
Yes.
You lined up on your bombing run, and from there on you followed his orders on what he had picked out as being the aiming point.
So you do the left, left, right, right, steady.
That's right, you did as you told. When he yelled out bombs away, I think you had to count to 30 before you closed the doors, because they wanted a camera shot of where they would estimate your bombs landed.
Yes, because you had a photo flash, didn't you?
Hmm.
That they put down a chute. Yeah. And the flash went off 30 seconds.
I think it was about 30 seconds,
30,
I think.
Yeah. It must have seemed like a long time to fly straight and level.
Well, yeah, that's right, especially with the doors open.
Yeah. Did that slow you down?
A little bit, not a hell of a lot, because by that time, having lost the weight, the aeroplane was back on its own, and it was a beautiful thing to fly, a Lancaster.
Yes, yeah, that's what everyone says.
Well, when you consider the age and experience of the people they were training to fly it, it was a good job that it was a good aeroplane to fly. It had no bad habits.
Yeah. Were you ever hit by flak?
Yes, we had. We had aircraft damage. Holes in engines, and all the oil leaked out, so you had to shut the engine down. The one that really made me blink, one day we just right on the bombing run, and all of a sudden, bang! Something came through the windscreen in front of me, was shattered, left a hole about yay big, and it was a piece of flak from a shell. And it hit me right there in the chest, but it didn't damage me because you had your parachute harness on and the seatbelt harness on, and that's where it hit. But it made me cough and blink, worried all the boys in the crew when they heard it. You all right, Skip? The biggest problem was trying to find something to put in the hole because, oh boy, was it cold.
It's an experience and a half.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show how lucky you can be,
Did you find the piece of flak?
I did. I took it home. I had Carstrop Roxol was the name of the place we were bombing, and I had it inscribed, but it has since vanished. I don't know what happened to it, whether one of the other members of the family got it, but I don't have it now. But I did keep it for quite a few years.
Yeah. I've seen a few pieces of flak over the years that people have kept, that entered their aircraft that they kept. What about fighters?
I don't recall ever having an actual attack on us. The rear gunner was a bright boy. He'd warned me if he thought he saw something. And I can remember one night he said, "We've got one I don't like coming closer and closer." And I said, well, usual rules. If he doesn't shoot, don't you start and annoy him. And we stuck to that philosophy, really, that unless they attacked, we didn't make an issue of it and got away with it.
What about the searchlights?
Searchlights were always a problem because they had a master searchlight which would, I think, pick you up by radar. When they turned that on, the aircraft lit up like the city lights. And then, of course, the others would hone in and they would make a ball of white light where you were flying and you were so insignificant to the area of this light, very bright light, that the only way out of it is what I did that night, is just push the stick forward and just go as fast as you can go and fly your way out of it, which is what we did.
Did it take long to get out?
At the time it took forever.
Oh yeah, I bet. What about losses in the squadron? Many losses? in terms of aircraft, air crews,
Oh, well,
while you were there?
uh, I don't have any numbers, but yes, there were losses. Um, you could usually tell that there were losses by the meal. You know, after debriefing, you'd usually go up and get something to eat before you went to bed. You might sleep all day after a night raid. Yeah, we had losses on our squadron, but how many or what they were, any details, they weren't keen to broadcast it. It wasn't sort of public information on the squadron. All they did was clean out the gear that belonged to the people that had been lost, tucked it away somewhere and just didn't say a word. And eventually the crew that was lost would be replaced by another new one.
It was called Getting the Chop? Getting the Chop, wasn't it?
Getting the chop, yeah.
There was a whole language almost that was peculiar to that time, that era. I don't know, so it'd be a wizard show, or did you use that sort of language, or was it just...
I don't know that I picked up all of it, but as you say, things like wizard show is an expression, that'd be the last thing I would have used for a raid.
Probably the poems.
Yeah, yeah, or the newspapers, but it was good. It was bad with all the visibility was good. Yes, we could see the target, so it should be a good result, but you wouldn't know the result because the pictures that the camera took automatically were given to the intelligence officer, and he never made it public anyway.
No, and the debrief session you had when you got back, the intelligence officer would want to talk to you before he went off to get your meal.
That's right. Well, you gave him what were conditions like, you know, how much flak, and he'd cover all those things like searchlights.
When did you get out? You finished your tour. It was too late to do a second tour or go to instructing, was it?
Well, it was too late. After 33 trips, I felt I'd done enough. And then as the war, I was posted back to Brighton, just to get me out of the way, I suppose. And then eventually from there, I was just moved to a ship. So back to Scotland we went. I boarded the ship and came home.
And you took up flying as a career?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. That was brought about. I went back to my old job. In those days, your employer was obliged to give you a job. So I went back and they gave me one. But they didn't have any work for me to do, so I was just walking around bumping into walls. And I worked for Eveready Batteries at Rosebery. And I had a desk where you could see the aeroplanes going past the window, landing on the runway there. But it was in that office that I met the girl that became my wife. And she used to talk to me about flying, and she was of the same urge. Anyway, she resigned from there and became a hostess with Butler Air Transport. Remember Butler Air Transport? Well, she was there for quite a while, and she still served as a, what you might call a temporary convenient. If they were a bit pushed or need someone, even after we were married, they'd call her up and ask her, well, can you do a flight for us? And she was off like a shot out of a gun.
And what were you flying? You were with TAA?
I was TAA all the time. Oh, I did fly for a little crowd called New England Airways, but that was only for a few weeks when I received a letter from TAA asking me to go down and join them. So I took that, being the larger airline.
And flying DC-3s?
That's what I started on. DC-3s, DC-4s, Fokkers, Viscounts, the Carousel, the Boeing 727, and that's the one I was flying when I decided to call it quits. I called it quits because our three sons had grown up and left. There was just my wife and I in the house, and I said, well, I think I've spent enough weekends away from home in our marriage. It's about time that we had some for ourselves. So I quit about 3 months before I had to just so that we could spend more time together.
Oh, it's a lovely way to end an interview.
It was nice.
Yeah, that's good.